What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we have a pop-up of green price action here in the cryptocurrency market. So we'll take a peek over here at the Bitcoin price chart, and we'll peek over there at the altcoin market. Probably take a peek over there at the XRP price chart as well. If you don't know, there was a big surge in price action over here on Bitcoin, going from $39,400 up to nearly $42,000 last night, when there was the accidental slip up, maybe accidental, who knows, of Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen's comments on President Biden's executive order on digital assets. It appears it had accidentally gotten posted over there on the U.S. Department of Treasury website, then quickly got removed. But if you're unfamiliar with the Wayback Machine or archive.org, it can pretty much catch anything and document it even after it gets deleted. And we were still able to see Janet Yellen's comments on the executive order, even though it had been deleted off of the Treasury's website. Fast forward to this morning, the White House, right here on whitehouse.gov, released a fact sheet, President Biden to sign executive order on ensuring responsible innovation in digital assets. And we won't go through the whole thing in here, but as we know, this is something we've been waiting on for 4 or 5 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks at this point. It just never really came to be, but finally it did today. And the key highlights of this, of course, are that digital assets, including cryptocurrencies, have seen explosive growth in recent years, surpassing a $3 trillion market cap last November. And about 40 million people in the United States have invested, traded, or used cryptocurrencies. And the rise in digital assets creates an opportunity to reinforce American leadership in the global financial system. That's why today, President Biden will sign an executive order outlining the first ever whole-of-government approach to addressing the risks and harnessing the potential benefits of digital assets and their underlying technology. The order lays out a national policy for digital assets across 6 key priorities: consumer and investor protection, financial stability, illicit finance, U.S. leadership in the global financial system and economic competitiveness, financial inclusion, and responsible innovation. And essentially giving out different tasks that they want different departments to look into. Protect U.S. consumers, investors, and business, protect U.S. and global financial stability and mitigate systemic risk, and so on. And of course, explore U.S. central bank digital currencies. But this is kind of what I was expecting that was going to come from this whole thing right in here, was the rise in digital assets creates an opportunity to reinforce American leadership. When we initially had a lot of the discussion about an executive order coming out right now, I know a lot of us kind of jumped to, we didn't know what it could be, right? But in my heart, I said, if you look at it from the political landscape of where it's at, there's a huge opportunity for the Democrats to try to switch their perception right now. If you look at the approval ratings of what the Democratic Party is at right now heading into this election year, they're in big trouble heading into these elections. And just squashing cryptocurrency, when you have approximately 40 million Americans who have invested in, traded, or used them, it just seemed incredibly counterintuitive at this point. So, we still don't know what the end result of this thing is going to be and what the end will be, but here it is. That's the messaging again, right? Hey, this is an opportunity for America to be the leader in this innovative technology. And I think that's what we were all looking for and hoping for. And well, prices happened to pop right when that happened. So I'm happy to see that. I'm glad this moment is now behind us. It's been kind of looming over us for a little while. I know we've had kind of multitude of things that have been hanging over us as we've been down here at these lows. You have the Federal Reserve rate hikes. You had the White House executive order. And of course, we have the big macro thing going on over there with Russia and Ukraine, right? So one out of those 3 things has kind of been put to rest and put to ease at this moment, with the executive order not being so terrible, but more of like messaging that, hey, look, we've got to do a lot of research. We got to get on the ball with this stuff because it's an innovative technology that does seem like it's not going away. Just several years ago, $14 billion market cap, now $3 trillion, 40 million Americans. We need to be the leaders of this. So that's the messaging that they're portraying. I'm happy to see that. For those of us who have been around all this time, we've always known the term, America's getting left behind. And well, this messaging is saying America is not going to be getting left behind. So overall positive, I think. But moving along, looking at the price charts, we can see the prices are up this morning for the majority of the market. We can see we have one down here in the red, Monero. And last night, I don't know if anybody noticed it. I'm sure some people did. But before we went into the close, Monero and Zcash fired up 28% for yesterday. So we saw this sudden rise happen in the privacy coin sector yesterday right before the close happened. So don't be fooled by that right there, knowing that it was up 28% yesterday. Otherwise, the rest of the board is green, and as should be no surprise, and we're about to have the opening bell here happen in about 5 minutes. I'm recording before the opening bell of the stock market. The Dow Jones is up 591 points in pre-market. The US dollar is taking a big step backwards. So as you know, we've had this dollar rising, we've had gold rising, oil rising, commodities rising, all these things rising at the same time while the stock market's been paused out. But crypto's been more tied to the stock market, yet we've seen all these things rising, getting back up into these retracement levels. And now that we can see the dollar is pausing out and moving down relatively quickly, and along with oil pulling back down to 117. So these things are happening very quickly over here in oil, the dollar, commodities, all types of things. And I've talked about this on the channel. I was on BitBoy's channel yesterday that, when you have these types of parabolic rises happen over here in oil, they historically don't last long. Anytime it gets carried away that quickly, it tends to fire itself right back down. So I'm not convinced just yet that that's going to keep breaking out and going much higher. And I'm certainly not convinced that the dollar is going to keep going up much higher. So as we're back into these retracement levels in here, this is typically where reversals come in. So of course, this is the big watching point here for the dollar. And for those who are invested in the stock market and those who are invested in cryptocurrencies, the correlation has been when this thing is falling, that's typically good for crypto. So as we're back into the retracement levels, looking for reversals. Now, one of the things I've presented frequently has been that, if we look at what has happened with the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the big bubble that we've printed in here and the correlation of that to the roaring 20s before the Great Depression ended up coming in and how big that parabolic rise was there for the Dow Jones, is that we've been kind of hovering in this same area in here like we did before the final push-up happened, the parabolic blow-off top happened in the Dow Jones. So that's what I'm rooting for. At least, of course, I'm not rooting for the Great Depression, but I'm rooting that, hey, this isn't the end of times and that, there's still more upward price action over there in the Dow Jones. One of the things I've presented here in the Dow Jones is that this has been an ABC correction in here that retraced back to a 702 Fibonacci retracement before making another leg down, and that these legs were of nearly equal length in here. And as we can see, we've pretty much come back down to the lows again to attempt to test it, but we're up 600 points today. And I try to make correlations that people can kind of, connect with. And one of the times we've seen something like this was with Bitcoin while it was still heading up and getting up near its top, right? Is that we can see how there was a similar thing that occurred back in here, is that you had an ABC correction and that these waves were of equal length in here or of near equal length in here. And notice how it had to come back into double bottom in here. Now, when comparing the Dow Jones to what happened during the roaring 20s, in the big pausing area in here, an equivalent place that would be a low that would need to hold in order for that to still look the same would be 32,000 for the Dow Jones. So long as it's still holding it right here, it's still just looking like an ABC correction with waves of equal lengths after a 702 Fibonacci retracement. And we can see how these things work, is that there can be a double bottom. So long as that low is holding down in here, the low that we set when, everybody was really scared with the geopolitical events when they unfolded, was that the mark at the bottom, right? Ultimate fear, ultimate capitulation. Oh my goodness, the sky is falling. That's a capitulation level. That was the max selling and fear moment that we could have. As long as that level is holding down in there, it's still just looking completely standard. And I think the thing we can kind of take away from that too is that, I am cheering for another run up in the stock market. I think what we've witnessed happen in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, really the last couple of months, and like I've presented pretty much for the beginning of time, is that crypto is more tied to the stock market than it is to the commodity market. And we've seen the commodity market really taking off during this time period. Yet we've seen crypto completely stuck down at the lows, while the Dow Jones and the stock market has been down here at the lows as well. So we've been way more following the stock market than we have been the commodity market. So if we're going to see something like that happen where, hey, this low is holding in here, this is a standard ABC correction with the 702 Fibonacci retracement level in here, this would be a good sign. I think we could all cheer for something like that for the stock market. And that's what I'm hoping for from this point forward for the stock market. But when we look over at the stock market, you can look at a lot of stuff that looks like it's popped. Like you look at Netflix, it looks like it's popped, PayPal, Spotify. Lots of things look like they've already popped. And I think we'll probably see some type of rotational play happen over there in the stock market, because there's a lot of things that have still just been in their bear market, sitting below their all-time highs that were set back during the dot-com bubble. like GE and Ford and plenty of other assets. Those are really the ones that I watch the most, but there's still a lot of rotational plays that need to happen over there in the stock market. And I still stick with my thesis here for Bitcoin as well, that the top of Bitcoin is in. Even if the stock market goes on and sets new highs, I think it's still the most likely to me that we're just seeing some type of long and grueling retrace come out of here for Bitcoin. However, it's the rotational opportunity over here in the cryptocurrency market as well. Lots of bubbles printed over there in the stock market, lots of consolidation in the stock market with things like Amazon and Apple and Facebook and Google and everything like that. But, that money's got to go spreading out throughout the whole stock market now to let everything else catch up to it. I think that's the same thing we're witnessing over here in crypto. At least that's my thesis and my hypothesis on how the market would play out moving forward is that, the top of Bitcoin is in still, but this is the great opportunity for the big rotation in the cryptocurrency market. And when I interpret the White House coming out and talking about digital assets, you have to think about it. Who's the ones that pretty much already have the clarity, right? It's a Bitcoin and it's Ethereum. They're the ones with the clarity. Today, the White House came out and said, we're not here to squash the rest of the market. We're here to help innovation. We're here to help the cryptocurrency market grow. And there's always been this worry on the altcoin market of, hey, is it going to be allowed to happen? And we've already known that Bitcoin and Ethereum have. And so it adds a little fuel to the fire of the speculation of, all right, let's spread the wealth, because it doesn't seem like everything is going to be getting crushed in the market. That's how I interpret it, right? So I try to think about, what could this really mean? And it's saying we're not going to crush the market. And the only things that have had any clarity have been Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the rest of the market is not getting the cold shoulder from the White House. I don't find the timing of that unique. This setup that we have in here is the ideal setup that we saw in 2018 for the altcoin market. So there may be a news narrative coming along with it, with, of course, a ton of geopolitical events happening throughout the rest of the world to really just pour the fuel on it for that altcoin market. And we know that if a falling dollar ends up happening in here, that's typically a good thing for the altcoin market. And you kind of look back to these events of when the dollar has peaked in times. Right here, it was, oh no, Trump has won the election. We're all doomed. Everybody buy the dollar. Everybody freak out. But then what happened that moment in time there in November and December marked the reversal. Stock market went up, dollar fell. We go over here and we look at this one. When did this peak end up happening? This happened during the midst of the C-19 scare. Oh no, the sky is falling. Everybody flocked to the dollar. And that was the reversal point, headed back down. And then we look at the dollar now. Oh no, we look like we're going into war. Everybody freak out. Get into the dollar. And hopefully it's a reversal at this point, right from the retracement levels. And we can kind of even see how these last breakouts happen and these endings happen. You end up having kind of an ABC in here, one more push, and then your final excess. You have your big rise up, you have your ABC push up, final excess, and then just like in here, right? Final excess, and then that was it. So we've got a final excessive moment happening, taking us into retracement levels. We have a narrative to go along with a bunch of fear, and we know that these moments were historically very good for the altcoin market and cryptocurrency in general. So I think we're all lining up, especially with the stock market set up over here after this ABC correction. As long as this level down here is holding at 32,000 for the Dow, this may be the starting point for another rally to happen in here, just like we've seen in previous bubbles printed for the Dow. So moving over to the altcoin market. And while we haven't spent a tremendous amount of time talking about the XRP price chart, because it's really just been consolidating for about a year almost at this point. But over the last several days, I've been spending a whole lot more time just looking at it kind of privately on my own, and still just looking at this thing thinking, man, this is the ideal setup that I look for. And this is the same setup that you had for Bitcoin back in 2018, 19, and 20 before the price really took off. And I can look around the altcoin market all over the place. There's different structures all over the place, but we can correlate them back to 2017 to say these were all still similar setups for what took place before things really exploded. Even things that are very low, these crazy setups that we have that look like they're gloom and doom, look like big crash, retrace, reaccumulations on larger time frames. So I still remain as optimistic as ever on the altcoin market. And I know for a lot of people, that's hard. They get impatient to hear that. I don't think the waiting is going to be very much longer. And I think what we saw today was very optimistic for the rest of the cryptocurrency market in regards to that executive order. But the charts scream it too. Bitcoin's got a setup that typically leads to an ABC correction. Altcoins are set up for another leg up. I think the exciting time is going to return. And I think a lot of these geopolitical narratives that are happening out there, and it's always cliche when you see people on Twitter, oh, this is a perfect advertisement for Bitcoin. But the reality is it's a really good advertisement for cryptocurrency in general. I'm a huge gold person. I'm a huge silver person. But in these situations, situations where these people are needing money and, they're needing to do something with it and they're needing to avoid any type of intermediary. Boy, what other option is there? It seems like the perfect advertising campaign for it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up today, guys. I've been pushing through, man. I'm sick. I have a fever. I have a cough that's kept me up all night. My wife would always call it gungus. You get gungus in your throat. You can just taste it and all that stuff. And I've been like this for a few days. I powered through yesterday with Crypto, tried to put on my face to make it seem like I wasn't sick at all. But I had a fever yesterday. I've got a fever today. Poor sleep. When you push through the first couple of days and you're like, whatever, but then you finally reach that point where you're like, dude, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I am at that point. So I'm going to go get some rest for the rest of the day. Hopefully I wake up feeling great tomorrow. I didn't go to the gym yesterday. I didn't go to the gym today. It's part of my normal everyday routine. So I need to really get myself back in action. And I'm going to spend the rest of the day just kind of resting. So I hope that you guys are having a good week. I'm glad to see that positive news come out there for the executive order from the White House, and then it's nothing to really be too afraid of at this point. I'm happy to see the Dow Jones up. I'm happy to see the dollar falling. I'm happy to see crypto up. And on that note, we'll wrap this thing up. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for something to do today, you could check out my website over here, which is bcbacker.com. And this is a course that I put together where I deep dive into the previous Bitcoin bull runs and the previous altcoin market cycles, tying them all together to show you how this cryptocurrency market has worked in the past. I talk about my personal exit plans in here, and I teach you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. Talk a lot about mathematics and percentages and why those are so important to me. And the most recent market update was in here last week on February 28th, and you could check out all of this educational content over here on bcbacker.com. You could follow me over here on Twitter at bcbacker. And I want to thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.